semester of school. We went to, you can take it to I did a full semester of intro, but it was the first
Okay, so
intro course.
I'm gonna resume again. So if I can have eyes and ears over here. So as you all are getting closer to getting your ring ends to meet up, I want you to look at it from 2 points of view. So kind of like from a profile view, do you see how what I've drawn here, the edges are kind of a little offset? So you're going to continue to do that over, under, side to side until they snap together really well. And then from the top down, so like to use my fingers as an example, if you're looking at your ring in profile, you want to make sure that it's not like this, it's like this. And when you're looking top down, that it's like this and not offset side to side, right? So just make sure that as you're checking the flushness, if that's a word, of what you're doing, that the edges line up side to side and top to bottom. Okay.
Do you have to worry about the inside part where they're, this part right here, where they're hitting each other, like if this is got a little cup in it or something? Do they have to have that flush part on this? Do you know what I'm
Like a
what I'm
blunt
talking about?
edge? Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So what I was seeing with some of our filing, which is normal, this is not a criticism, right? But as we're filing the edge, sometimes the middle it kind of bumps up, right? We want to knock that down so that it's perfectly flat. And the way that you sometimes need to get that is look for the file that has the convex side so that you can target the middle area of your wire to kind of bring that down a little bit more. And then I did notice on some of yours, like the burr edge was present, and that does make a difference. So just trying to knock that down as well will help you get to a better meeting of your two edges. Any other questions before I start this part? Ooh. Rennie, will you hand me just like, there's some sandpaper back there behind you. That and a little bit of steel wool, which is in the yellow cubby. Thank you very much. The steel wool. So the yellow to your right a little bit, those little baskets, yes, just a tiny bit of that. So just like you want to make sure that our practice solders from Tuesday, that the metal was clean, you know, we've been touching the silver a whole lot. So it's dirty, we've transferred oils from our finger, and so I'm going to do just a little bit of sanding and a little bit of steel wool work on the edge here where I want to do the solder, just to make sure that the silver is clean.
And the sandpaper is what number?
This is, I think, 220. So this reminds me that on Tuesday I found like almost a full sheet of sandpaper in the garbage can. Please don't throw away this. I mean, you can use sandpaper until it's falling apart. Just because you've used it a little bit doesn't mean that it's done. Okay, so that's sometimes, depending on what we're sanding, the grit of the sandpaper might fill up, but that's an easy fix. All you need to do is just take a little wire brush and you can knock the contents out of the grit and keep using it. So all the materials in this, class are expensive. Like if you've, as you're learning when you're purchasing your materials. So same goes for sandpaper too. So it's not cheap stuff. So use it until it's dead. So what I'm gonna do is make a little scrap bin. So when you're done using your sandpaper for the day, you can kind of collect your own little stash, but you can also just put it in the scrap bin. Okay.
So is it better that you're gonna solder onto a flat part now, and you can shape it into a round ring later?
Yes. Yes. The reason why I have all of you bending the wire to kind of make like a squash tomato and this, so that this part is kind of like flat like a tabletop, is so that the soldering process is easier. Okay, and then once we get a good solder join, then you can put it on the mandrel, and that's when you're going to shape it.
Your
Okay.
write-up on Canvas shows us do all the shaping on the mandrel and then soldering.
Say that again?
The write-up on Canvas, which
Uh-huh.
I just read that, talks about doing the shaping on the mandrel first and then soldering. And that seemed
Part of that, you can do that just to kind of, if you're using the mandrel to help you size it, but not necessarily shaping. If it's misleading, I will correct that. Okay, so I'm putting, you all see how I put the ring into the cross-lock tweezers. I have this is the big solderite board underneath me here, just to make sure that I'm not going to burn the table.
Do you use the same kind of flux for different kinds of solder metals?
You mean like electrical versus?
Yeah, well, like if you're doing copper versus silver.
It will not change copper versus silver, no. But I've never tried using electrical solder or electrical flux on jewelry. I kind of go with the stuff that is.
I think your question is that the same flux you use on copper is the same flux you use
Yes,
on
it is identical, copper to silver. Okay, so I applied my flux, and now I'm going to use my tweezers. I'm going to grab a tiny fleck of silver solder, and I'm going to land it right on the seam.
To disturb your concentration.
Yeah.
Have you tried it the other way around? Heat up the flux and then place it?
Sometimes you'll see people make little solder balls and do it that way. I've not tried that, but I am interested, like when we're doing different kinds of joins, I am kind of curious to see if like making the little solder balls will make a difference.
What's a solder ball?
You're literally just taking a little bit of silver solder wire, taking the torch to it very quickly, and it goes from a wire to a ball.
Yeah.
And it seemed, from what I've read online, it seems kind of like a mostly personal preference, but what is that what you're talking about?
No, we've seen in a video that some people heat up the flux first.
Oh, and then place.
Then, while it's hot, you can place it and it will stay in place. And it won't move as much.
Yeah, you can certainly try that. The other potential, listen, there are going to be several different ways to do these processes, and I would say try them and see what works best for you, right? So just because I'm showing you one way doesn't mean it's the only way. I'm a big believer in experimentation, and you know, as long as it gives you the result you're looking for, then what's the harm? So you can certainly try to heat up the flux first and then place the solder. I'm trying to think if I've ever done that, and the only thing that I can think would be potentially hard in that case is that, like, if you've heated the flux and it's bubbled and then it's gone to the clear gel, and then you try to put it down and it doesn't land in the right spot, then it's a little bit harder to move around potentially, but I don't know. Try. Okay, so
how many pallions are you using there?
I just have one on.
One.
I'm gonna try one. And so I'm going to try this method of holding the torch in my less dominant hand and the tweezers in my right in case my pallion scoots. But my hope is that the slow approach with the torch, so that the metal doesn't heat up all at once. I may not need to do that. So far my pallion is staying put. I'm coming in a little closer. My solder flowed. And then I'm gonna quench. So it happens in the matter of seconds, right? So let's see.
When you heated, did you just go on the side, on the top? I couldn't see from the example.
I'm coming in from the side, and again, I'll just reiterate that your goal is to heat both sides of the metal equally. Don't think about heating the pallion, right? You're bringing the silver up to temperature. So I'm trying to move it, it's not moving. So I can pass this around if you want to look at it.
So if it moved, would you just do it all over again? Add more pallium?
Yeah, so if the join didn't take, then and who knows, when I put it on the mandrel and start pounding it a little bit, we'll see if my join is accurate.
Would you have to sandpaper it clean first? Yeah, you'd have to do that again.
Oh, yes, because the moment you anneal the wire,
Right.
it's oxidized,
Right.
So if you need to redo your join, then you want to clean the metal again first. And you could, we can set up a pickle for silver today,
Great.
if anyone gets to that, so you can throw it in the pickle pot for a few minutes and then go ahead and sand it. So while that's going around, ooh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to go ahead and put, Telly, will you just see if you can see what I'm doing here, if we need to adjust the camera? Yeah? Okay. So I'm gonna put this in.
What good sandpaper would you use after it's been
Still the 220.
220?
Yeah, I think so. And I had it in that sweet spot, and it wasn't moving around. I had the worst timing with, right before the semester began, I tweaked my shoulder. So I'm like, it's so much better than it was last week. I was really afraid that I wouldn't be able to do demos.
If we're using the mandrel that goes inside the block,
Yeah.
should we have it coming out this way or straight up and down?
Out towards you. You'll see when the ring comes back around, you'll see why.
So this is not good.
Correct. You want the mandrel to be, horizontal, maybe tilted up slightly, which you won't really be able to do with the block, but you can do in the vise. So I've got my rawhide mallet, and I'm going to, when the ring comes back round, slide it onto the end of the mandrel, and then just with the mallet, just start hammering it into the round. And right now, the silver is definitely softer than what I began with because I annealed it in doing the join. But just by virtue of using the mallet on the mandrel, it'll start to work harden. So as the last folks are looking, any other questions about what I've done so far? What's that?
What's this called?
Vise.
A vise.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, so pliers just to open it up a little bit, just to get onto the end. Of having tiny fingers.
What are you doing right now?
What's that?
What are you doing right now?
I'm just opening it up so that I can start shaping it, and I can tell that my join didn't take. So, but
It felt nice and
Did you want to
Yeah.
come over around here?
it was.
it can be deceiving.
I mean, I can
There's
see.
So-
I just understand the process, but thanks.
So, yeah, that's starting to split. But just to show you what you will be doing once you get it on the mandrel is hammering, turning, and shaping it into the round. And some of you were worried about, like, oh, if I make it too small, do I have to start over? You can actually stretch the metal on the mandrel, so that it's something to use to your advantage if you realize that it's too small, but it's also a cautionary tale as well if you if it fits perfectly. Try not to hammer quite so aggressively, because you can and will stretch the metal. So that popped back apart. I'm gonna try that again. But you're basically turning the ring on the mandrel and just tapping. To get it into the round. And then it's important to take it off the mandrel and switch directions, because you probably notice that the mandrel is not a perfect cylinder, right? It allows us to graduate in the ring sizes. But if you can imagine, you're stretching the ring on the mandrel, so like my fingers are kind of depicting the sides of the ring. If you're only working on the mandrel in one direction, you're going to start to pull the walls apart and make them wider on one end. So that's why you want to take it off, flip it, so that you kind of bring the edges parallel again, if that makes sense, okay? So, I'm going to try my solder joint again, but that is basically the next steps in the process. Sorry, Tally.
No, is that because it's tapering?
It's tapered, yeah. So you want to have it on there, hammer it for a little while, slide it back off, flip it, and slide it back on and continue.
flipping the mandrel, you're flipping the ring.
Correct, flipping the ring. Flipping the ring,
What was she talking about?
flipping the ring, not the mandrel. Yes, correct.
Everything has to be baby explained.
Okay. Any other questions up until that point?
So would you, pickle that
Yeah.
and clean it up before you tried the second attempt?
Yeah, I'm gonna make up some pickle for today, throw it in there for 5 minutes, and then redo it.
Can you exhaust the silver? I mean, do it too many times?
Not really,
Oh, okay.
not in my experience, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if it's all good, we'll do the pickling after shaping.
After you shape it and if your join stays intact, then you can graduate to stamping.
Oh, so the pickling is before shaping. Does matter?
Pickling is after. It's gonna be after,
Before stamping.
before stamping.
So you shape it first and then you stamp it?
Shape it first. Once it's perfectly in the round and it fits well, then you can slide it back onto the mandrel, and that's when you can do your stamps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we mandrel again after stamping?
Shouldn't have to,
Okay.
but try it on again and see if it's still fitting.
Can we make a non-round ring?
Can you make a non-round
Like so it's a
ring?
little more squarish?
I wouldn't for this particular assignment. Yeah, if we're gonna do a carved wax ring or potentially another piece of jewelry for our second project, and that's maybe where you can start playing with kind of abnormal shapes. Yeah.
After stamping, if you were to mandrel it again, could that flatten out your stamps?
Not if you're using the rawhide. I don't think it should. If you're using the rawhide or the rubber mallet, that should preserve your stamping.
And the reason why you would be pickling right now is before you solder it again.
Yes, just to clean the metal, because right now it's crazy dirty. I annealed it. It's got flux and a little bit of fire scale on it. So yeah, we want to clean it again. Just otherwise, you're never going to get a good solder joint.
And you're stamping on the exterior rather than the interior of the ring?
Well, I am, just for my aesthetic purposes, but someone asked that before. If you want stamps on the inside, definitely do that before you start bending the wire, right? Because otherwise it's going to be impossible to kind of get the stamp in there and make a mark.
So when people do the 9 to 5 step,
Beforehand. Yeah, they're gonna do that beforehand. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
So if you were doing to solder again, if the solder had taken,
Yeah.
you won't be picking, you'll be just going into stamps.
Yes, yes. If I had a successful join, I would be moving on directly to, maybe using a little bit of steel wool just to get some of the soot off so that I could see where I'm stamping and what I'm stamping, but otherwise moving on directly to stamping. Good. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
To start